As a journalist, I've always been fascinated with people's stories. Stories about where they're from and how they came to be. But the stories that intrigue me the most are the ones about a time that changed the entire trajectory of their life's course. Stories of that moment. I'm your host, Chida Rebecca. Hey, Sena girl, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Hello, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited. You are my first guest, and I'm really excited to talk to you.
The pressure is on.
No pressure at all. Just be yourself. It's all good. It's all good. So listen, I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm so excited to have you on the show and to just share with people who you are, where you've come from, and where you're at today. I remember we've had a lot of great conversations. You've been really inspirational in my home journey and just, mind shifting. But I remember talking to you one day and just kind of asking hey, how did you get into this? Why are you here? So let our people know, who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been here in San Diego.
Thank you first and foremost for having me on the show. I was when I got the call, I was like, oh my gosh, okay. My name is Sena Williams. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. I've been residing in San Diego since 1999. No, I am not a San Diego native. I reside here. I am originally and will always be forever Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, okay, I get it. I mean, big up. Is that how you say it? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. I like Brooklyn. I mean, Biggie, and I don't know that he's from Brooklyn.
He's from Brooklyn.
Okay. I feel like I have a connection to that. So you're allowed to say you're still from Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm still from Brooklyn.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let it slide this time. All right. You can have that dual thing going on, though. You can claim San Diego, too.
Yeah, I'll claim the tacos. I will definitely claim the tacos. There is no place like tacos in San Diego.
I know, right? Mm-hmm. It's dangerous.
Very much so.
Yeah. So listen, so you got to San Diego. You were here, and how was it when you got here? What was San Diego like?
It was definitely different, a culture shock coming from the East Coast to the West Coast. Meeting the people, learning, the behaviors and patterns. I'm from a city that's always on the go.
Yeah.
And coming to San Diego, I was about 17. So it was more laid back, and I wasn't used to that. I was used to more the fast-paced city life.
Yeah.
So it took a while, and it still is. Been here since 99, and I'm still getting used to that laid back.
Really?
I can't get used to it. For me, it's always go mode.
Yeah.
So when I see people just casually out there in life in general, I just be like, what is going on? So it was different, but I had to adjust, and I'm still learning to adjust.
Yeah. Still
learning to be patient with people in the process of the different cultures and the different areas.
Yeah. That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought it. I guess it is really laid back here.
It is.
It's a gift and a curse, I feel sometimes.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
Yeah. So listen, in you coming to San Diego, you did the life thing and grew up, got married, had kids. What was that part of life like for you?
That was definitely I would say the biggest blessing for me.
Okay.
Meeting someone who was patient with me, learning and growing together. And I don't know, just overall somebody learning and loving you for who you are and accepting you, the good and bad, the ins and out, and just growing together and producing some amazing kids.
Yeah.
Some amazing kids. So that was a different journey. Having seen that on TV with my dad and my bonus mom. So it was okay, now I get to be a partaker of that same story.
Yeah.
So it was definitely interesting.
Yeah. I think sometimes when you enter into the space of being married and having a family, you kind of think, okay, I've done it. This is it. And then you don't really account for all the curveballs and the hiccups that come.
Yeah.
Especially when you start having children and you're trying to navigate life. And, and sometimes you hit some rock bottoms. And so I'm sure you've had some of those moments. Share one of those, how, where things were cool and then it got real.
I would say right off the back in our marriage, my husband got injured. He was in the military, and he broke like his wrists and tore all the ligaments and misaligned the bones. And during that time, we got pregnant with our firstborn, and it was like, okay, wait a minute, what is going on?
Yeah.
You know, I think that was the first major issue. He was in like a cast for like 6 months, not knowing what to do, how to do it, and being a first time mom, learning and growing. It was just like, okay, Lord, how do I get through this?
Yeah.
You know, what's next?
Yeah.
So that was like the first major issue. And it was the first step to actually growing up and learning how to do things on my own. Coming from the family that I come from, I'm so used to just picking up the phone and calling my mom and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Can you do this for me? But that was the pivotal moment that I had to learn how to grow up.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, but I learned how to shift. I'm still learning how to shift and make decisions as a wife and a parent.
Yeah.
Not always easy.
Yeah. Listen, when you find out the full, how to, let me know. 'Cause
Yeah, I don't think we ever will.
Yeah. So when this happened, what line of work were you in? What were you doing? How were you guys kind of making it work?
So my husband was in the military, and I had 2 jobs at the time. I worked for a moving company, and I also worked at the Polinsky Center. I worked at nights. Most people, they see military and they think they're rich, but, military members actually are the lowest paid people in the world. So in San Diego, even back in the day, you needed 2 incomes, in a house. So I was working part-time for one and part-time for the other. And then once I transitioned with my son, I started working for an eye doctor's office.
Okay.
And we had an apartment like in Lemon Grove. I remember it was my first apartment. Rent back then, 1 bedroom was $575. So,
Oh my God.
So yeah, but it still was, living in this San Diego. It still was a struggle. I think minimum wage back then was like, I want to say $9 or something like that. So it still was hard.
Yeah.
But we learned and we adjusted.
Yeah. So I've been in situations similar where, those days where you're sitting at home and you're just like, I can't do it like this anymore. I can't. Like, it just has to be more to life.
Yes.
I need more. Share that moment for you where you were like, I need to pivot. I need to step out and branch out of this fear that I'm sitting in and just change.
Wow. So it was a lot of moments like that, but
Okay.
the most amazing one started with my first business when I used to do these like cookie parties for kids. Well, basically were for my kids.
Okay.
And I will always have my friends over. It's hard being a mom and being able to hang out with your friends. And so I wanted a place and a safe place where my kids can develop relationships and friendships and have everlasting bonds.
Yeah.
And all of my friends, we all had kids around the same age. So during that time, I would have these cookie parties, and one of my friends was like, you should start a daycare. I knew nothing about daycare or anything like that. And it stood on my mind. My husband had just transitioned from the military and was working in school, going to be an electrician.
Yeah.
And we're now 2 kids in. And I'm like, okay, we still need the 2 incomes because San Diego is that place that 2 incomes is better than 1. You can thrive off of 1, but, 2 is always better. And I was working in corporate America. And at that time, I was like, okay, you know what? We're still struggling financially, mentally, emotionally. It's rough out here. And when my friends mentioned it, I kind of brushed it off. I was like, yeah, no, this is not going to be, that's not it. I can't do that. And one day, at that time, the market started to crash around. I want to say this was back in like 2008, and people were losing their homes left and right. People were losing their jobs left and right. And I woke up one night and heard God say start a daycare, and I was like, there's no way, I'm doing this. And I was like, God, if you really want me to do it, you got to give me a name for the daycare. And he the next night I woke up 2 o'clock in the morning and he gave me the name Children of the King, and I was like, why? And he was like, think about all the people that you know that are adults. We go through situations in life where we go through what's called identity crisis, where we're searching like for our why and our purpose. And he said, if most adults are taught as a kid that there's a meaning of life, that there's purpose, and we instill in them their why, then they won't grow up as adults trying to search for their why. And like I said, we were going through like the major market crash, and I remember going into work in 2015 and 2008 in December, and my job gave me the slip and was like, "Hey, we got to let you go." Wow. And I was like, "What am I gonna do?" Yeah. I was excited because I got to be back at home with my kids, but I was still like super nervous. Like, we need that income. Yeah. And that's when the daycare was born. That was that pivotal moment, was like, I know I can do this. I heard God tell me to do it. I asked him for the why. I just got to trust him. Yeah. We had no money really, $250 in our account. Wow. And my husband was like, take it. And we had a bunch of kids' toys because we had kids. Yeah, yeah. And he was like, take it. And that's how our first business was birthed.
I always wonder, I feel like God sets us up in a lot of ways where, people will drop little things, come up in conversations, and he's warning us in a sense. It was almost like, hey, Sena, something's about to shift in your life. Yeah. I'm planting this seed. And then we're like, no, I'm good. I'm all right.
I was definitely feeling like, you know what, I got this. I don't need any help, or this is not the road that I wanted to travel. Yeah. And it was definitely steps leading up to it, because one, I wanted to be back home with my daughter. Like with my son, I was able to stay fortunate enough to stay home with him for 3 years. Yeah. With my daughter, my husband had just actually, he was out of the military, but he was working for truck driving, I remember. And he had lost his job a week after she was born. Wow. So we had to, 9 months after she was born, we had to move out of our place, and we had to go live with my parents. We had to wait for his VA stuff to kick in, and then once it kicked in, we were able to move into our own place. So it was a huge shift. Yeah. And with him just starting a new career, he literally was in school for electrical. He was making $12 an hour now in 2008. And this was 2006. Now working in the electrical field, we needed the second income, and it just so happened that we had a family friend whose job was looking for an assistant. So that's how I was able to get in the company to work. So I wasn't able to give my daughter that full time at home. I had to enroll her in daycare, and I didn't like it. But at the same time, I knew I needed to do something. And I remember crying every day, like, God, I don't want to be away from my kids, God, and I just don't want to be away from my kids. And I remember one day my sister was like, well, what are you going to do if you quit your job? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. And then fast forward a year later, the market crashed. Market crashed. The world's in an upset. People are losing their homes left and right. And I'm like, I can't afford to lose my job. Like, I need this job. Yeah. We need the income. Yeah. And all of a sudden, all these cookie parties birthed out, and I don't know why I started doing the cookie parties. All I know is I wanted my kids to have friendships and lasting relationships. Yeah. And I wanted to hang out with my friends, but I didn't want to I was too old to be in a club, or I wasn't too old, I just chose not to. Yeah. But I needed a safe space that we as moms can get together. And so it was like literally patterns of things that was leading up to that I had no clue about.
So did going into the daycare space end up being everything that you needed it to be? That thing, so it seemed like at first you were kind of running from it, you didn't want to do it. What was your idea of what you thought it would be versus what it actually ended up being? Like, why were you scared to even move in that direction? What were the fears?
The fear was no one had done it, and I didn't know what to do. No one. My mom owned a business when I was younger. Her and my aunts, they had a beauty shop, so that closed down when I was little. But that was my first like real like opportunity to see entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I never wanted to go into entrepreneurship. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. So that was like the first thing that I was able to see. Then my parents here, they owned a janitorial business. I kind of helped them, like once they wanted to get it started, I helped them get the research. I helped them bid on the contracts. I did all the stuff. So that was my second opportunity to see entrepreneurship. But me, I was like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur because I knew nothing about it. Didn't have the education. I went to college, but I didn't finish college. So it was like, I don't know what to do. And that was my biggest fear. And not only that is working with kids is like, God, you love me and trust me enough to raise somebody else's kids and not raise them, but basically be that, I tell all my clients we're co-parenting together because most of their children's waking life hours are with me. Yeah. And I was like, you literally have that much of faith in me that you want me to co-parent with someone who's not my child. Yeah. And that was the scary part. You know, you don't know what kids are coming from. You don't know what difference you can make in their life. So it was really, for me, it was like, Sena, you got to make sure that you are being obedient. Yeah. And I've always been the type of person that if God said do it, I know it's going to work. So, yes, I knew it was going to work. How was the problem? I didn't know the how. Yeah. I didn't know the pieces. And I reached out to a family friend, and I was like, hey, can you help me? And they pretty much was like, no. And I was like, no.
You weren't supposed to say that.
It was definitely not what I expected. Yeah. And from that moment on, I was just like, okay, you know what? This is totally me relying on God because I don't know what to do. I don't know contracts. I don't know how to the business part of it, the money part of it. I do know how to be a mom, and that's what I knew. So I use my motherly instincts and God for the rest. Yeah. And yeah.
Do you feel like because your back was up against the wall in terms of the fact that, okay, you've been let go of your job, you don't have a plan B, like this is it. Do you think that's why you were kind of pushed into exploring more of how to get this going? Because that was it. That was all you had to do.
So actually, prior to losing my job, December 15th, I think it was around like November time is when it started to come up like, hey, Sena, start looking at daycare, start, researching it. So I had already started researching it, but I didn't put any actions to it until December 15th. And I felt like at that moment we were having a women's conference at our church, and I went into church, and our apostle was, she was that first lady at the time. Now she's an apostle, but she was there, and I was like, I just got laid off of my job. And she was like, you seem excited. And I was like, you know what? I have no clue what I'm about to do. And she was like, do what God just told you to do. And that was, at that moment, it was like, okay. Yeah. But when I, in all my research, it was like, you got to apply for this license. You got to wait till you get approval. And we had no savings. We had no savings. So I'm like, okay, we took literally our last $250. And I'm like, I got to wait. And it could take anywhere from 30 to 90 days. Wow. And I still need to bring money in. So unemployment, started coming in, and that wasn't a lot. And then my application got lost in the mail.
Of course it did.
It got lost in the mail, and I'm like waiting and waiting and waiting. And now we're like 4 months past.
Oh my goodness.
And I shared with some of my friends, and I was like, I'm going to open up a daycare. And they were like, okay. My one friend who kept encouraging me to do it, her name is April Johnson. So if you're listening, shout out April. She was like, okay, my kids are going to be the first kids. And I was like, no, you can't. I'm not licensed yet. And she didn't care. She pulled her kids out of the preschool that they were there, and she enrolled them with me immediately. And that was able to sustain me until it was time for me to get my license. So yeah, it was a bunch of things that kind of like pushed me, like, okay, your back is against the wall.
Yeah.
You need the finances. This is go mode.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So while you have this daycare business going on, you're also in real estate.
Yeah. Now I am.
How did that happen? How are you doing both of these?
Oh my gosh, only by the grace of God. So, real estate pretty much came out of the fact of, one, I experienced some really bad times trying to purchase a home. And two, service. It was another opportunity to get out there and teach people and to pretty much show people love, really much show people love. So yeah, it's been interesting, but nevertheless, it's brought me closer and deeper into learning about others and helping others. Real estate was birthed out of, like I said, an experience that I was trying to purchase a home and we were getting told no on every corner, and no one wanted to, really work with us because we didn't have the credit, we didn't have the finances, and like I said, to be honest, the struggle still be real. Most people don't think, you can have a 2-family home and still go through, but you're still going through. And our credit was horrible. Our credit was horrible. And I began watching at night, I think it was Dave Ramsey, and I was reading his book about money makeover. And there was only one agent that was willing to work with us, during the process of building our credit, saving up some money. He had no problem with showing us houses, even though we didn't qualify, where everybody else was like, oh, call me later. And he stuck by us for like 3 years to get to the place that we needed to get to. He kept the connections. And I was sitting in the house one day watching HGTV, and we had just now purchased our home. And I was like, buying a house is nothing like what you see on TV. Like, you don't just go in a house and see it and be like, I want this house, and now you get this house. I was like, that's a total lie.
Yeah.
Like, whoever created this are liars.
Yeah.
And I was like, they are liars. We put in an offer on a house, and we got declined. They told us no. And then a month later, they came back and was like, yeah, you can have the house. And typical escrow takes about 30 days. Ours took 3 months.
Oh, my goodness.
And during that 3 months, I was like, I had never knew anything about escrow, knew anything about lenders, knew anything about home inspections, all of that stuff, because I watched HGTV faithfully. I was like a faithful person watching that. And I was like, this is crap. I'm not sure if I can say that, but I was like, this is crap. I was like, this is just not right. I was like, no one is teaching people that you're going to have to experience this when you're purchasing a home. I only had one person who actually taught me that, which was my realtor. He went through line behind line. I mean, dotted every I, crossed every T, taught me everything. It was more like I was in school to purchase a home. So I'm sitting in the house watching HGTV, and I heard God say, go into real estate. And I'm like, okay, here you go again, God. Like, the last time I heard him that direct and that specific voice, now I hear God all the time, but that specific voice was when he told me to start the daycare. And I was like, I can't do this. I was like, real estate? I was like, I don't know nothing about selling no homes. But he was like, your testimony, you know about what you went through. You know about the experience you have. What if the next person is going through the same thing? And no one is patient with them. No one is teaching them. Who else is going to do it? And I was like, oh my gosh, here we go again. And within 5 minutes after that, I picked up the phone and I called my agent. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about going into real estate. And he was like, you would be amazing. Do it. And I was like, okay, but I need a mentor. I loved everything that you did when you were working with me. Can you mentor me through this process?
Yeah.
And he was like, of course. And that's how the real estate was birthed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've done all these things, and there's, I feel like, those before and after moments where you have an interaction with someone or a child who's come into your daycare, and all of it makes sense. You understand in that moment why God led you in that direction. Like maybe your interaction with the family or child saved their life, or you, by helping someone with a real estate deal, you help them, kind of avert something really crazy. So what do you have any of those situations in your life where maybe through the child care, there was just one case with a kid or just something that made you really understand, like, okay, God, I get why you had me do this, why it was me.
Every case is like that.
Yeah.
Every case, every client is like that. With daycare, I used to think in the beginning it was more so for the children. And it still is for the children. It still is about the children. But now I see it's also about the parents.
Yeah.
Because we're building them up. We're encouraging them.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients are military, so they're coming from, they have no family out here. So we're bridging the gap and being that family for them. Where real estate is the same thing. We're bridging a gap to people that don't understand, don't know, need that help, but most importantly, need that encouragement.
Yeah.
Buying a house, especially in San Diego, that's huge.
Yeah.
That is very much so huge, and not many people can afford to do it.
Right.
It's a huge investment and a scary investment, and it brings me back to when I first started being a business owner. It was a very scary thing, and it was a faith-driven thing. Like, I didn't know the expectations. So speaking to these people and helping them purchase homes is pretty much encouraging them that you can be anything you want to be. Yeah. You can do whatever you want to do. And it's the same concept with daycare, because you're teaching them and you're showing them that you can be whoever you want to be. We're not stopped, or we're not driven by just the color of our skin, our gender, our social or economical background, our financial status. Like, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. Yeah. So the same concept I have with daycare is pretty much the same concept I have with real estate. Most people, one of my favorite clients, besides you, was a young woman, single woman. She was a single woman, African American. She was, she didn't think she could afford to purchase a home. Yeah. And she beat the status quo of being a single Black woman to purchase a home in California. Then my second favorite client was, actually, I would say these were everyone, all of you guys listen, just a disclaimer, you're all my favorite clients. But actually, this family, I would say, was my favorite clients. So they were renting a home, and the home they were renting was my friend's home. She was my first unofficial real estate client, and she had moved, purchased another home in another state, and she goes, I want to sell my house. And I'm like, okay, it's like 2:00 in the morning. She had texted me. I was like, go pray about it and then let me know what Jesus said.
Yeah.
And this was like during COVID, and she texted me the next morning around the same time, and I was like, dude, Jesus did not talk to you that fast. It's 2:00 in the morning. Call me later. And I woke up that morning. I was like, okay, you really want to sell your house? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay. And she had tenants living in a house, a family. And I was like, okay, all right, we'll start the process. Send me their lease so I can look it over to see, what it says in the lease. So I'm looking over the lease. There's nothing that says anything about her can't sell a house or anything like that. And I'm thinking about myself. I'm now putting myself in a place of the tenant. And I want to say it took me about 2 days before I contacted the tenant, because I'm like, the housing market is very short. It's not that many homes right now. And rent is crazy. Yeah. How do I tell this family that, hey, you're going to have to move? Yeah. I was like, I can't do that. And I'm wrestling with the fact that my client was to sell her house, and I was that family that had to move because, you know, the owner, they didn't sell their house, but they went through like a bankruptcy and was losing their home. So I'm like, and this is during the market crash. So now I'm taking back to myself and thinking like a tenant. And I'm like, how do I come to this family and tell them now? They just moved into this house. It's COVID time. How do I do that? And so I just was like, okay, God, help me. I picked up the phone. I called them. I was like, hey, you know, I'm Sena Williams. I represent X, Y, and Z. I just wanted to let you know that they are considering selling their home. And they're like, okay, I heard the pause.
Yeah.
I heard the pause. And I was like, let me ask you a question. Have you thought about purchasing, you know, a home? And they were like, we thought about it, but we can't do it right now. And I was like, okay, you know, why can't you? Yeah. We don't have the credit. I was like, do you know what your credit score is? And they were like, no, not really. I was like, do you mind if I put you in contact with a lender that, you know, can help you? And it was like, yeah. Long story short, they were able to qualify to purchase a home. Yeah. But they were not able to qualify to purchase that home. Okay. And the housing market was short. Yeah. Their budget was short. And it was like, what do we do? Yeah. And I think we were listed the house at like $585 or something like that. And they only qualified for like $495. Okay. And so we had to still look for a house. So I did an open house. They were like, Sena, we believe this is our house. I was like, well, you know, put in an offer. They was like, put in an offer.
The family didn't qualify for the home that they were living in.
They did not qualify.
They felt like that was their home.
They felt like that was their home. Okay. I was like, put in an offer. Yeah. It was like, okay. So they put in an offer for the home. Now, mind you, it's $495 because that's all they could qualify for. Yeah. And I think we listed the house at $585. It was somewhere around that. And I sent it to my client because now I'm representing both the buyer and the seller. Yeah. And I'm like, Lord, I'm hesitant because I know she's going to be like, nope, like not a shadow of a doubt, no. And so I sent her the offer, and that's what her response was. No, without a shadow of a doubt, no, absolutely, positively, no. Do another open house. I'm like, okay. And here it is. We're in a market now that houses are getting like 20 to 30, you know, offers. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, we only got that one. Yeah. And I'm at the gym. I'm like, she already told me no. I got to now deliver the bad news to my client. I'm at the gym, I'm working out, and she is blowing up my phone. My watch is going off, and I'm like, okay, yeah, she's my client, but she's also like my little sister. Yeah. So I'm like, she gonna wait. Right. And so I'm at the gym, I'm working out. After my hour workout, I come out, I call her, I'm like, why are you blowing me up? Yeah. And she was like, just get in my house. And I'm like, huh? And she was like, they can have the house. I was kidding. They can have the house. I hung up on her. I literally hung up on her before she had a chance to change her mind. And I was like, wow. Just run that by me again. You said they can have the house. She was like, they can have the house. And I hung up. Wow. I called them. I was like, congratulations, you got the house. That's amazing. And I asked her, I said, what changed your mind? She was like, you must have was praying. and you were. And I was. Because I'm still trying to figure out how am I going to tell them, hey, no, your offer got declined and you guys got to move. Yeah. And she was like, I was literally in the shower and God said, get him the house. Wow. And then my husband walked in and he was like, you know what you got to do. And she was like, I got to get him the house. And that, to me, for them, was like, hey, what a way to encourage somebody. One, they went from not even knowing that they could even qualify to purchasing a house that was well over their budget. So walking in with equity and not understanding the fact that, you know what, God, how did you do this? Yeah. So it was, and that client, the husband, is a firefighter. And he was able to bless me with some tickets. He also worked part-time at Disneyland. He was able to bless me with some tickets to Disneyland. It was a trifecta of things. Yeah. And there was a call from another agent asking for people to sponsor families during Christmas time. There was one family who had never been to Disneyland. It was a grandmother taking care of her grandkids.
Yeah.
He was able to bless me with the tickets to bless that family.
Wow.
And then that family became my daycare clients.
You're kidding.
So it all merges
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
But had I not put myself in the shoes of where that client was as a tenant,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have never picked up the phone and called. I would have just been like, hey, we're selling the house. It's just the end of story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my heart is to help someone,
yeah.
to teach someone, to educate them, but also to be that sensitive, have that sensitivity that no one had for me but one person.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we are more sensitive and considerate of others, then we can change the world.
I love it.
That's literally how, that's my favorite story.
I love it. I like literally have no words. If somebody didn't get something from that, I don't know what to say. That's beautiful. It's so many things. It's when you go through those hard patches, those rough moments, and you feel like that's just a trash situation, and God brings you back to that moment to cause you to remember how you felt, the anguish, the anxiety, this is what I'm dealing with. It's crazy to be able to go back in time and think about that, and then to use that experience in a situation that's going to help somebody else. And I think that's the beauty of the hard moments that we deal with. I feel like we should never forget them.
Yes.
We should hold on to them and know that they're going to help drive us, further down the road in our decision-making process. But you have such an amazing heart, Sena. I've just watched you over the years. I remember when I first talked to you, and I was just like, I guess I want to do it. I don't know if I want to buy a house. And, like you said, people don't tell you this. It could take 30 days. It could take a couple years, just being in limbo, waiting for this situation to happen. But it's not even so much the purchasing of the home, it's the journey to purchasing the home. It really pulls a lot out of you.
It does.
It tries you.
Oh, yes.
It makes you really focus in on what's important in so many ways. And I will say, our first conversation, you were so encouraging. You were so motivating. I was like, I guess I can do it, because all you hear is it's expensive here. And I just really had avoided the whole home purchase situation. I just wasn't interested. I really wasn't. I was like, this ain't it. I'm good. And it's been an interesting journey. I decided to kind of pull back from the whole situation. And there are things in my life that are happening now that kind of explain why I wasn't able to purchase a home then. And so, the Bible says all things work together for good. We may not know in that moment, but I'm hopeful that through your story and your lessons, people are able to find their why, and they're able to lean into those things that they know that inner voice is telling them to do.
Yeah.
I'm a strong believer that there's something in all of us that everyone needs. And, there are people that are waiting on us to take those first steps. And if we don't take those first steps, we're delaying whatever that deposit is that they need.
That is so true.
Yeah. So I'm glad you took your first steps.
Thank you. Thank you. It's scary.
Yeah.
Because every day is a first step.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to encounter. But every day I ask God, like literally my prayer in the morning is, God, help me to make a necessary difference in the end. Help me to be the light that you need others to be. Help me to offer that encouragement that I didn't really have.
Yeah.
Help me to embrace and give love, because I never know when someone's last day can be.
That's true.
So if I can make a difference in their life, that's all I want to do.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Sena, for talking with me
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Of course. And continue to be that light. We need you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you so
girl.
much.
You're welcome.